Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam's first canto, chapter 2, text number 8. Dharmasvanustitak pungsam vishvakshena katasuyaha notpadayat yadirating shama eva ikevalam. Translation: duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist, who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Concentrated selfishness centers around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around the family, society, community, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloof in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry, philosophy, and propagating some ism with the same aim of selfishness, limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and mind is a dormant spirit soul, whose absence from the body makes a whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people who have no information of the needs of the spiritual have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is a potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and the mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets a complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord, and any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or the other. Even if he goes up to the Svarga Loka, he will find no permanent abode for his hangering soul. The hangering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. Dharmas vanustitak pungsam vishvaksena katasuyaha nutpada yet yadirating shama ivahikevanam. Duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timiranda Shagyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vandashi Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahoditao Gaudadai Pushpavanto Chidro Shando Tamonudo. So, we are hearing about Dharma, this section of the Bhagavatam. The last verse we heard was about the Supreme Dharma, Paro Dharma, Savai Pung Sang Paro Dharmo, that very famous verse. So, Dharma has to be executed in the human form of life. That's a sign of civilized life. Dharma or duties, occupational duties, is part of human life. Without that, it's not human life. It's actually not civilized life. We just heard the lecture with Srila Prabhupada yesterday or the day before, where Prabhupada said that if there's no Dharma, then it's not human life. Then it's what's called Dvipada Pashu. If so-called human beings are simply engaged in the activities of animals, eating, sleeping, mating and defending, these four basic activities, if that's all they are doing, even though they may do it in a more sophisticated way, they may, listen to, finer arts, finer classical music, poetry, all this stuff, and eat from very nice tables and cutlery and maybe even silver and serviettes, everything arranged very, very nicely, but the essence of the activity is still the same as the animals are doing. It's eating, it's satisfying the belly and the tongue. So if the so-called human beings are doing simply the same as animals, but they have no dharma, they're not engaged in higher activities, religious activities, then they're called Dvipada Pashu. They're two-legged animals. Now this is very hard to hear that, and someone may be very disturbed by that. But this is what the Shastra is saying. This is knowledge coming from a higher level. And if you see that, if that's all the human beings are doing, the same as the animals, even though in a more polished way, what's the essence? There's no really higher engagement, even though human beings, of course, have a higher intelligence. That's a prerogative of the human beings in terms of animals. Animals cannot put these questions about life. They cannot inquire into the real problems of life, into Atma Tattva. So human beings have to engage in Dharma. Also, this is stated in the second chapter. Deha pacha kalatradishu atma saineshu asatsu api tesham pramatanitanam pashana pina pashati. So, if those, amongst all living entities, those who have accepted human form, the human form with its high intelligence, if they are simply attached to the bodily extensions, the fallible soldiers of the body, children, wife, and of course if it's a woman, it's a husband, if it is simply attached to these without asking, inquiring into the higher purpose of life, Atma Tattva, what is the self, who am I, what's my existence, what the basis of my existence, if they do not put these questions, then they're missing the point of life, and they are ultimately getting destroyed. So the purpose of the human form of life is you have to ask into Atma Tattva. Who am I really? Why am I here? What's the purpose of everything? So this verse is stating that if whatever dharma you're doing, so if you're on the platform of civilized human life and you are performing dharma, prescribed duties according to your nature, like we all have a prescribed duties according to the body we have. Men have a certain, women have another dharma, Sri dharma, according to your psychophysical nature, your varna, whether you're Brahmin, you're Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, you have specific duties according to your varna and according to your ashram. You know, there's 4 progressive stages in spiritual life: brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. And all these 4 different spiritual divisions also have certain things, certain dharmas they have to do. So, so on the material platform, there's so many different dharmas you have to engage in. But there's also paro dharma, the higher activity, also called sanatan dharma. Sanatan means eternal. So Jivera Sarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas. So the living entity's constitutional position is that he's spirit soul and he's eternally the servant of the Supreme Lord. So Sanatan Dharma means to engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a paro dharma. That's the highest activity the living entity can be engaged in. Also higher than we hear about other spiritual path here, the Brahmavadis, those who are involved in the impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord. So this is a bona fide process. There is Brahman. We know the Supreme Lord has 3 aspects. One of the coming verses are going to explain that. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yat jnanam advayam brahmi iti paramatma iti bhagavan iti shaktyate. So the 3 stages. There is Brahman, the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. These are the Brahmajyoti. These are actually the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. That's the impersonal aspect. It's real, it's there. And moksha, liberation, entering into that Brahmajyoti. This is a bona fide process given in the Shastra. So it's not that it's false, but there's higher conceptions. And higher than that is Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Supreme Lord. The form of the Lord situated in the heart of the living entities. 4-armed Vishnu form, very, very wonderful form, is situated there. And the yogis engaged in Ashtanga Yoga, the mystic process, 8-fold process, they meditate upon that aspect of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu in the heart. Very, very wonderful. It's a form of the Lord. It's all-pervading. That form is situated not only in the heart of every living entity. Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddhishir yunatishtati stated he is situated in the heart of the living entity, right next to the Jivatma, the individual soul, us. So right besides us, there's that wonderful form, 4-arm form of Vishnu. Every single second, there's no time when that Lord is not there right beside us. And he is not only in the hearts of every living entity, whether it's a huge whale or it's an insignificant insect, is in the heart of all living entities, is also in every single atom. So there's nowhere, he's Sarvakata, the Supreme Lord in his Paramatma feature. He's all-pervading in this material world. There's nowhere he's not. In this room, he's in every single atom. So, besides he's sitting there in the heart of Chaitanya Prabhu, of Lucas, of Beda, of Luis, and myself, he's there, everywhere. That's amazing. So that's another process of transcendence. But higher than that Paramatma level of the mystic yogis is the Supreme Lord in his original form, Bhagavan. So, the personality of Godhead, the source of everything, the source of the localized aspect. He's the source of Paramatma, and he's the source of the Brahmajyoti. Brahmano hi pratishta aham is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman. So that's a higher conception. Also in the Ishopanishad stated, how is that? Hiranya, how's that going? I forgot the Sanskrit, but there the prayer is, my dear Lord, please remove that glaring effulgence so I can see your real face. So the Supreme Lord, he has that glaring effulgence, and it's wonderful. I mean, when you attain the Brahmajyoti, you're freed of all suffering. There's no suffering. And we know the 4 aspects of civilized human life is Dharma, again Dharma, it starts with Dharma, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So it starts with religious activities, engaging in the activities you're supposed to engage in according to your body. And when you do that, then you get Artha, then you get material prosperity. That's a mystical process of the universe. If you're actually engaged in Dharma, you will get material prosperity. It will come in due course of time. It will manifest. People nowadays, they have no idea of that, but we don't have to go that much back in history. And people were quite, fairly religious, even here in this part of the world. So many churches everywhere, because people were going to the churches. They had a level of religiosity and thus engaged in it, partially in Dharma at least. And thus they got material prosperity. In this country we have relatively still, it's a affluent society, so much wealth is there in this part of the world because people used to be very religious. So Artha comes from Dharma, and then Kama, then sense gratification. When you have money, then you can enjoy your senses. You can buy nice houses, you can get nice vehicles, you can get whatever, nice foodstuffs, all the clothing you need, whatever sense gratification you need, because you have Artha, you have money. And then ultimately when you, in civilized life, progressive life, when you realize that whatever amount of sense gratification you have, whatever amount of wealth, you're not fully satisfied, then it's moksha, it's liberation. So Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha starts with Dharma. But the ultimate goal of Dharma is to gain attraction for the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, all these different dharmas, they are shrama eva kevalam. They are a useless waste of time. Know that verse, very important verse here. Shrama, we call useless labor. Ultimately, it's useless. On one level, it's not useless. There's also that verse in, fifth chapter, Chakva Swadharmang Charanam Bhujam Harir Bhajana Bhakvota Patit Tato Yadi Yatra Kvava Bhadrama Buddha Mushakim Kovarto Apta Bhajatang Swadharmataha. Stated that sometimes even one engages, even one gives up Dharma, on the lower kind of Dharma, because we have Parodharma, Sanatana Dharma, which is transcendental, and then we have the Dharmas of the material body, because Sanatana Dharma, Parodharma is for the soul, and all the other Dharmas are for this, related to this material body. So, someone who is engaged in the higher Dharma, he may sometimes fall down while in an immature position. So even if one is engaging in devotional service in the higher Dharma, if one is not fully fixed, we know there's different levels of advancement. And on the Nishta platform, one has to attain the Nishta platform, which is steadiness. From that platform, generally, he can fall down, but generally he doesn't. So if one is not in that stage, on some immature stage, he may fall down, but still he is not baffled. Whatever he has done on that platform is for his eternal benefit. So that's the wonder of spiritual life. Even you engage just a little bit, that'll protect you from the most dangerous type of fear, stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Even a little advancement on this path can protect you from the greatest fear. And that greatest fear is losing the opportunity of the human form of life. Because in the human form of life, we have all possibilities for supreme success. And the human form of life is not given, like some think that once you